Yeah, the system was predicting along here. Entry would have been 61. We didn't take it because it thinks it's choppy, and it thinks that because no, that looks pretty good to me. I think the issue there is that the volatility has been so high that we're stricter on the choppiness front. So that would have been a hard target trade. So we'll just mark that. It's the kind of thing we have to just work through as we deal with conditions we haven't seen before on a day-by-day basis. And then yeah, so the volume here in the H contract is still way higher than the M. So everyone's rolling over to the M, okay, but we always trade the contract that's got the most volume. And so when this happens, your software will roll you. It almost always rolls you one day too soon. And what we want is just bring up the control panel, look at the two contracts. You'll see here, you know, you've got 95,000 in H, 13,000 in M. Trade the H. Tomorrow it'll be switching. It does tend to make the market a little bit more choppy when we're rolling over like that. So do keep that in mind. Yeah, it's avoiding it because it thinks it's choppy, and the mechanism we're using for choppiness is tuned right now for the wacky volatile conditions we have. But I think that I'm looking at a different way to do that, so that to really take advantage of the machine learning system and better identify, because this looks very classic to me, right? You've got a nice advance, and then you pull back, and then you get a very clean signal there and a quick 30 ticks. But we don't take it because the system says, no, it's too choppy. And you actually, there's another code right there, 185. That's a long on that down bar. That's already at scratch. And anyway, so it very much looks sideways now. So these, I would be happy to stand aside on. That first one, though, I would have liked to have gotten. But I'm looking at a different way to do that. That takes more advantage of the machine learning capability we have to identify is it choppy or not. So by definition, the assessment is lagging, because you're looking back to see, well, what has it been like. And so you can use like a moving average and look at its slope and give you a sense for choppiness. You can use the previous waves, how big are the previous waves in relation to each other, and use that. But in both cases, you're looking backwards. So there's no way that I can see that you can look at the current bar or set of bars and go, okay, these conditions are choppy or not choppy. It's part of a larger question. Let me restate that for the recording here. If there's nothing to do, I don't want it to do anything. So right now it's very clearly sideways, right? And if you try to trade this, you're just going to lose money because there's no opportunity. But if you think about it, what I'm trying to achieve is a system where I don't have to sit here and do nothing while there's nothing to do. I can go off and go about my day, and the system will just do nothing while there's nothing to do, while I'm actually doing something productive or enjoyable, like sleeping. I'm chuckling because one of my members, I'm looking at you, Davey, is teasing me that I've done all this incredible amount of hard work over the last year just so I can sleep in the morning. Don't have to get up so early here on the West Coast. All right, so again, we're talking about choppiness. Think about it as if you're in a boat with no motor on a lake, okay? And the wind is blowing, and so you've got a sail, and you're making progress in the direction that you want to go, or you're attacking against the wind, whatever. You're using the wind to go somewhere, all right? And you have a direction now. But then the wind dies down completely. There's no wind. There's no motor in your boat. The direction that you now go is, it isn't random. It's subject to physical laws that are too complex for us to model. You're just drifting, is what we would say. And that's what the market does when it goes quiet like this. It just drifts, just up and down, up and down, up and down. But if you try to, what we're doing, what the machine learning system is doing, is digging into that. It's looking at the order flow data and matching the pattern of that data to other instances where it's seen that pattern. Okay, but there's not necessarily a relationship between. You can have those two patterns that look the same in choppy conditions and non-choppy conditions, quiet versus non-quiet, on the surface. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to do a better job of modeling using the machine learning techniques for what does it mean? What does a choppy condition actually mean? And the system is trying. It just got long there. Okay, so let's watch that while we chat. That's on a potential turn. And so what prompted this discussion was that there's a long here, right there. That's actually a pretty nice trade, but the system, because today is really quiet, the system it didn't take it. It thinks it's choppy, and we look at that and go, well, it's too soon to say that it's choppy. But when you dig into why it did it, it makes perfect sense. And so, okay, clearly that's an area that I'd like to refine. I got caught in some really ugly chop on Tuesday. That's a function of just the severe volatility. Today, this looks very normal to me, so I would fully expect to be able to catch that yellow circle trade, but then stay out of the subsequent chop, just by making some fairly minor changes. But what I'd like to do is get, let's build a full machine learning model that describes conditions, where the output of that model is conditions are movement or choppiness. And then basically we chain the models together. So you take the predictions that you're getting, which are, the predictions are looking pretty solid actually. And combine it with this choppiness versus direction model. And then now in theory, right, you end up with a better system, because we want to be actively trading when there's a direction, and we want to be staying away when it's choppy. Okay, so we're short now. Let's see, and now it's scratched 264. So that's what is that? All right, I got to get out my cheat sheet, because I've got I made too many distinctions here in the granularity of our choices here. So 264 is so that's it sees that little pullback, that 3-bar pullback, and then a rollover, and says, okay, I think this pullback's going to succeed, and predicts that. So we enter, and we're looking for it to go lower here. We hit scratch, so still using the very aggressive stop trailing. It kind of looks like it's going to come up and get us. Okay, so another trade scratching out there. And now let's wait for the next signal. So so after this trade scratched out here, back to the choppiness question. What I want is simple. All right, I can look at that and go, this first trade here the conditions are not choppy. I want to take that trade, whether it's a long, short. I don't care and I don't even care if it succeeds or fails. I want that trade. Here in this area, very, very clearly, you've gone sideways. Okay, I can see that as a human very easily. All right, the machine system can absolutely see that as well. So it's just a function of teaching it. I didn't teach it to do that yet. All right, there's no question that I can do that. That's simple. It's just a matter of sitting down and working out the architecture, and then deciding, you know, how to integrate it with the existing set of models that are doing the predictions. Okay, it's very, very clear, and the more I think about it here as I'm talking, actually, the more obvious it's becoming on exactly how to do it. So, all right, this is what is so interesting about this and so exciting. One of the problems you have with the tools that I use to evaluate the model is, hold on, let me catch up here, is, you know, we do a lot of batch simulation across, you know, 3-month period of time to understand, okay, is what I'm doing working? You know, is it profitable across that period of time? What's that level of profitability? How does it compare to the last model? Yada yada yada. Okay, the problem with that is that, well, there's pros and cons to that. It shows you over time, yes, this is good. All right, so it's like the baseball season. All right, my team is good enough to go to the World Series, but they lost 50 games. Okay, so for trading, my model is good enough to be profitable over 3 months, but I took, you know, max losses on 20 days. Okay. The batch simulation only lets you see the season. It only lets you see the total picture. Here now, in the last 3 weeks now, we've been 2 weeks of real-time simulation, 1 week of live, and now seeing it day by day in real time, you can see some things. Okay, well, you know, I need to fix that. Some of this is obvious. It's a function of the fact that you're switching from batch to real time, and from a global view to a local view. Some of it is the conditions are bizarre. Like the Tuesday thing was just crazy. That weird choppiness after that vicious fall. That's a function of the volatility. And maybe I can deal with that. Maybe I can't. It doesn't matter. But what we see here, I can absolutely. This is very normal. What we're seeing right here, very normal behavior in the market. So I can deal with this for sure. So we'll look at that, and then it'll go through the entire suite of testing, and then we'll see what those results look like. So one of the things that we talk about, the benefits of a machine learning system, is not just the obvious things. A key benefit is that it only improves from here, because there's a foundation that's been laid, and so now we incrementally improve that foundation. Just like you saw, you know, Google Maps start as just an online replacement for your Thomas Brothers map book. Then it became available on the phone. Then it could calculate routes for you. Then it would put in the traffic congestion for you. Then it would calculate routes based on traffic congestion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just got better and better and better to a point where you feel like you can't live without it. That's kind of the idea here. So here's our foundation. Now let's start incrementally improving. All right, so here we are. It's 9:30. I just stepped in and started looking at what the system did. End of day result is plus 165, and I stepped away at 7:30, so it did an hour and a half on its own here. And what I see is let's see, I'm not sure if we captured this short here live or not. But it scratches, so short there, right there. And then it's interesting up here, we get 174 here is in the category of that's too aggressive. I'm not interested in taking that trade. 164 is takeable, but now it's looking sideways. So there's actually a lot of discussion here about choppiness and how to handle that as the volatility changes. So the mechanism that we're using to tune how to stay out of the chop requires adjustment as the volatility changes, and I don't like that. I think it needs to just happen automatically. I think the machine can take care of it, the machine learning system. So I'm actually working on that actively as we speak here. You know, that's a long looking choppy, not taken. Another long looking choppy. Both of these would scratch. I love that short. That's 254. which means it sees this little pullback right here. All right, it looks much like a turn, but it's kind of dependent on the location it is in the larger scheme of things. And then falls. But again, because you're in this what looks like sideways mess here, we don't take that trade. 264 is another short as well, but we're still looking sideways. And then finally down here, we get some movement, and 274 down here. This is in that category of way too aggressive, and this is kind of why you'll see those. This basically a very aggressive pullback, and so I'm not taking those. And then what we get is a short here, another case where, wow, I love this signal. It's what the machine learning system taught me here. It's not something I would have done before, though this particular trade scratches. That's a pullback long that is predicted to fail. And so you get this awesome entry, and you get to scratch immediately, and then as it turns out, you get taken out because the market is just it's gonna chop here. But I love that entry. Sideways now, so nothing. The yellow circle is a case where that's 121. Remember, if it starts with a 1, that means it's a long. That's a beautiful signal right there. But I don't take it, and I dug into why, and it's the same thing. It's just the mechanism I'm using to kind of stay out of the choppiness is hurting me here. Okay, so that's twice today that we've seen that. And I think one of the things to think about is, okay, well, we're dealing with super volatile conditions, and so we've sort of tuned up the be careful dial. But again, what I believe is that I can get the system to do the machine learning system to do a better job of identifying chop versus not chop. That looks to me like I would not say, okay, things are sideways here as a human, and in the machine learning system should be able to make that same assessment. So I actually started a model run a little bit earlier as an initial test to see if the idea that I have on how to teach the machine learning system that is not choppy will work or not. So we'll see. It's one of these cases where humans have a problem where we believe that any change that we introduce into a system will be positive, or we only think about the positive aspects of that change. But this is not the case. One instance of something is not representative. All right, so part of the benefit of using a machine learning system is that there is a very, very well-defined process to then establish, here's a change I made. Okay, go back to the start, train your model, do your simulation, yada yada yada, do all your testing. Nonetheless, I love, and this is another case here where 121 that's a failed pullback short. So what it sees is this little tiny jog here. Right, it sees it kind of top out and fall down and then not go higher. That looks like a little pullback, right? And closes down. As soon as it closes down, that meets the criteria for, hey, okay, let's evaluate that as a pullback. And it says, no, I don't think that pullback's gonna succeed. I think that's gonna fail, or rather, maybe retracement would be a better term. It's a tiny little pullback short that's failing. So what I like about that is the entry is just gorgeous. You'll get a quick 30 ticks there. You get to scratch very quickly. We predict a short up here, a very classic rational trader signal here, right there, and we get filled right here. And I was not here to record this live for you, but we get filled right there. It also predicts short again, actually, though it doesn't matter at that point because now we're filled in short. By the same token, it's giving you a long prediction there as well, which we just ignore because we're short. So that's something to think about when we're talking about how we evaluate models, but out of scope for today's discussion. So we exit there. You can see we left quite a bit on the table because the market kept falling. Another case here where a nice looking short signal, 236, and I end up not taking it. And when it's another case where when you and I look at this, that looks like a perfectly takeable trade, but because of the way that we're being careful about staying out of chop in the current super volatile conditions we've seen, that ends up not being taken. All right, so those three circulars, so there's three instances today where we see that we need to do a better job on evaluating chop versus not chop. This would have gotten filled, it would have got filled on that bar right there, 59.25, 51.50. That makes, that's a full 30 ticks right there. Okay, so that's it for today. 4 days now, and I'm pretty pleased with what I'm seeing. 4 days running live with real money, a real money account. Pretty pleased with what I see. Conditions, I would say, are pretty difficult. And we're doing okay. I see some obvious areas for improvement, and we have a webinar today, so we'll actually be talking about that today at that's 4:30 Eastern. Okay, take care.